Hello, everybody, and welcome to Eberron, Depth of Culture. What is this, Chapter 5, I believe? Episode 6, somewhere along those lines. Thank you for the bitty bit drops. I think it's all been Hunter and Wolf. It has been. How's everybody's week been going? Everybody but Erin, who's getting herself a cup of coffee to give a more pleasant answer.
I've been working. And I bought a new piece of equipment for my computer, and there it is. It's in a box because it doesn't work yet.
Oh, he's
That's
been working.
Always so fun.
Well, Eric's been twerking. How's your week's been? Good.
Okay.
It was fine until I shook my carton of almond milk,
Ugh.
and it got everywhere.
I did that with coffee the other day because they have this like foil thing and then a plastic lid. It wasn't sealed right, and I was having a drink everywhere.
The lid wasn't sealed right. I took the carton out of the fridge, I shook it up a little bit, and it just like splattered, and it was gross.
What kind of third world country is this that we can't have perfectly sealed containers for our lactose-free product?
Do I want the light on or off? Like, I can't decide. Like,
I don't like looking you in the eye while we do this, so
on. All right, there you go. On it is. Just because Ollie Grump's the only way people show up. So, all right. Hi, everybody. So last session we had arrived at Sharn. You guys had conversations with the gnomish overlord and learned many of the things about the stuff. You eventually talked to a bartender who got you drunk, and then there was a halfling that said, like, hey guys, I need a friend, and group hug. So, if I remember correctly, the last session literally ended with you guys going to get some food and drunk, and one of you going to meet up with an old friend of yours and spend the night. So we're going to pick it up the day after that. We do not need to roleplay another bar scene. Just
don't we? No.
Can let everybody have their own imaginative ideas to what took place in that bar.
But we have a new friend.
But he's not there. So
Yeah. Oh, he's not there? I thought
no, he's going to sleep.
Oh.
Like a nerd.
Yes.
Nerd.
So
only nerds sleep.
If I recall, I'm the least nerdy of all. So let's see. You guys, I know you had a few different things that you wanted to plan doing. One of the key ones being to speak to Nestfon again. So we'll deal with that shortly. A couple of other things you guys wanted to take care of. Let's see, I actually wrote a quick little list. Yep, it was just conversations mostly. So why don't we pick it up the next morning? The next day here in Sharn, it happens to be summertime again. That's right, it's summertime again. You're actually, so much time has passed since you guys left Sharn originally. Spent many months voyages to and from all the different islands over in the Lazar Principalities, and then finally, once again, a many-month voyage just to bring you back into Sharn. So while the campaign started in year, I believe, 998, we're actually in the summer of 1002. The time has been flying by considerably since you first met one another. So here in the city of Sharn in the summertime, the weather was relatively mild the first day or two that you were here, but today it's miserable. It's summertime in a tropical region in a major metropolis. So I mean, the humidity is just disgusting. It's actually to the point where you can actually see if you're walking through the city of Sharn and you're like, say, walking underneath one of the bridges, you can see condensation is appearing in the shadows that the stone bridges themselves form, and starting to drip down below. So every once in a while you get like a drip on your head and you're like, oh, it's disgusting. Leading to people that have, more wealth and whatnot, of course, being on the tops of towers or even the sky area that flies over the city's head. And those that have a bit more wealth, but maybe not enough to bring them to the top of the city, or having business down into lower reaches, will walk around with parasols or umbrellas to hold over their head and stop those nasty raindrops of bacteria and filth of falling on their heads. Makes them kind of stand out in the crowd.
Stanwell's gonna buy a parasol.
There you go. But it doesn't go with the outfit. And
nothing. The outfit doesn't go with the outfit.
If the humidity wasn't bad enough, once again being a tropical area, occasionally there's just thunderstorms that come rolling through. Those thunderstorms sometimes have rain that come with them, which honestly don't make things better. They just make it worse because now you're just wet with the humidity. Yeah. Or it's just dry lightning that rumbles through the area. Every time one of those storms just blows its way past, and they don't last for longer than, say, half an hour or 45 minutes, Kieran feels this electric feeling at the tips of her fingers. She can feel something like, pulling from within her. But, she's learns as years have gone on, her powers have grown to hold that stuff back to a degree. Kieran's not exactly one to be reserved, but at points in time, she knows that she's just to hold it for other times where it just gets released. So that way there's not more dead, innocent people on the streets of Shard.
Oddly enough, when you stand around Kieran, the weather seems fine.
Yeah,
it's not super balmy. It's not super rainy. It's wonderful, actually. Quite pleasant.
I bought this parasol and it's not rained a moment.
No. That doesn't stop the rain from falling down from the bridges overhead. So, it's one of those things where a drop falls on you and you wipe it away and you look at your hand and there's actually coloration to the drop and you're like,
yeah, that's exactly why I bought the parasol. That's sweat water. That's what that is.
It's like,
Sean sweat.
So anyways, the day is just absolutely miserable. It's uncomfortable for everybody. And this is the day that you wake up in your friend's home. As she had said beforehand, she happens to be friends with people of House Lyrandar, which you yourself had stated yourself having done so before. And so her home has a natural cooling element to it. Her home is actually conditioned in a way that we would assume our summer times with air conditioning would be in our homes. Sorry, Ollie, one day you'll know what that is. So you live in a third world country called the UK.
We live in a country where we designed our houses to survive rain. And now there's heat and we don't know what to do.
So funny. Come to the United States, we don't care about the environment. So we during this horrible day, you wake up in her relatively comfortable house. So for you, it hits you after you've already adorned your armor and your various bits of equipment and so on and so forth to go meet with your friends. And you step outside the door, and it's one of those moments where you're getting ready for work, and you step outside and you're like, I cannot get into my car and start the AC fast enough. This is vile. Except you don't have that. You just have to walk throughout it. So the rest of you guys wanted to meet with him at that bar that next morning. You're just having breakfast. Whether or not you're coming back from a hangover, I'll let be deduced from role-playing. But you go walking into the bar with the rest of them and see that they're already there sitting around the table, enjoying or playing with the plate of food served in front of them. And,
all right.
And just so you know, guys, he has no idea what your plans for the day are, so you have to kind of fill him in.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Will. I'll let you walk into the room.
Well, I'm gonna walk into the room and I'm gonna sit down with them. So, hello. Good morning.
Morning. I continue eating my food. I look back up at him and I say, "You find the place all right?"
Yeah, not too bad. I had some help with the directions right away and then took it from there. Wasn't too hard to find.
Good. I guess we should kind of clue you into what's going on, what we have going on here. Nothing too dramatic, at least for now. We are in town because we found some useful artifacts that I am having looked over at the at Morgrave University. They have a small campus here that we have them looking over our things. We have plans to have dinner with another curator with Morgrave University. I have a personal matter I need to attend to. It shouldn't take me very long. And lastly, and this is the most important piece. This is the most important piece, at least as far as I'm aware. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. We're looking for the whereabouts of someone known as the Gnomish Gorgon.
Yes, I will be asking around. If I remember correctly, she was with Kenneth when I last saw her. If not, there must be some sort of Zilargan ambassador or embassy that would perhaps know of her work, of her whereabouts. It's unlikely she's in the city, but if we can find out where she is, Zilargo's on the way to Dargun. We can always pay her a visit while we go on to your motherland.
Speaking of Scott, I'm gonna send just a letter, like basically an invoice, asking for payment for the last job I did for them.
This is host Kenneth, correct?
Yep.
Okay. She's like, I finally have money. I need more. Okay, so you can send that to them. That's not very difficult. Do you send that like a random messenger boy, or do you go through the proper channels of House Civis?
I tell Ryyk to have it sent out because he knows better. That's how to do that.
I'm going
I
to
don't
Canada.
care.
You could just give me the letter.
Yeah, I would mention that.
It's funny because I think Ryyk has a block in his brain piece when it comes to House. Red Tape,
I'd say-
doesn't he?
Oh, I would just assume that he knows how to handle the bureaucracy of it.
Bureaucracy in general,
And
definitely.
hand him like, this is the person that made the deal with me. These are the papers for it. There you go.
Send it out.
Well, when it comes to mailing, then I'm pretty much the same as you. So I would just
Give me that.
yeah. When you mentioned that, I would hand it over to you, and I would just say,
Mhm.
then you just give this to them.
Well, it sounds like an eventful trip. What do you need me to do? I'm happy to help.
You can come with me or you can go with the hobgoblin. I don't really know what Kieran's going to do, but you probably want to stay away from her unless you're considered accessory to a murder. Dear.
Honestly, it sounds like he has the cadence of a joke, but that's real.
No.
Everything I
It's
say is a joke.
fine.
In all honesty, it matters very little where you are at this point. This stuff has to be done one way or the other. Your usefulness will become more apparent once we get out of Sharn. How long
Why
has it
don't
been?
you help Ryyk and I will go Star Wars? That way we're evenly split. Group A and Group 1.
Sounds great.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
How long have we been here? Only a couple days, right?
Yeah, like 2-3 days.
It's probably too soon to go check on the artifacts. Am I wrong, or?
Well, it's a gnome who's been working on it probably without sleep, probably with the use of some illicit materials to make sure he can stay awake, so you may have a breakthrough.
Okay, so we'll go check on him first. Then, yeah, so that'll be our first plan. We're going to go to the Morgrave University, see if he has an update on the artifacts, and more importantly, just as importantly, see if he made a dinner plans for us.
All right.
So who's gonna be taking the stage first? Team A or Team 1?
They will roll for it.
TM.
I'll let you guys decide. You go right ahead.
Oh, roll for it then. Eric and Ollie.
I'm going to do it.
Sorry, I had to make sure that my Twitch was hosting you. It wasn't. It was being
I
rude.
did it. 14.
Whoever chooses the bigger die wins.
Yeah, me.
Okay, we'll do the boring bureaucracy stuff.
It makes sense. Ryyk is the big boy here. So, all right, Ryyk. So you said you wanted to go specifically speak to Nesvan first, correct?
Yes. I want to go speak to him first and see what's going on.
All right. So you take what's his face there, Corvus, all the way up to the Morgrave University. Once again, Morgrave University isn't above Sharn. It is just in the higher reaches of Sharn itself. In the Jesus, did you stop clicking things, you stupid computer? Thank you. It's just in the higher reaches of Sharn. So the upper city. So when you go make your way there, do you expend resources like money to actually take one of the sky carts, or do you want to just kind of like suffer through the winter, the summer times, and
No, I would take research. I would spend resources to get there.
Yeah.
Mind you, the houses want to kill us.
Yeah, I'm at the point in my career where I'm just gonna spend a little gold to do that.
So
I was literally aged by a ghost. I have a lot going on in my life.
so
I'm also fine with helping out for payment if you'd like.
It's fine. How much is it for the sky card? I can't imagine it's gonna be 100 gold.
no, it's just a handful of gold pieces. So it's like 6 gold for you guys to make your way up there. So and you do so. It's one of those things where it's like it's usually 8 gold, but they're like, you know, I had a brother that would have died at the war if it wasn't for your kind, and like gives you a discount, like employee discount. There you go.
Hey,
So-
the first time my race worked for me.
Oh, not you.
Oh.
Oh, rip.
Oh,
So Corp's like, I don't want to say that.
Back to the corner.
It's good that you have your moment.
Talking goblin, kill it.
He's with me. We're fine.
So you guys take the ride all the way up to Margrave University. When you go into that first entrance, you actually have someone comes around that recognizes you as the gnome from before, not Nesvan, but the other gnome that existed before. Actually, he says, "Excuse me for a second." Comes around the desk and says, "Oh no. You don't need to come in this entrance anymore. Please, let me show you." And he goes walking out the door, and he's like, "Hey, wait! What? Wait up!" To the sky cart that just like dropped you off. The sky cart was like literally about to take off. He's like, "What?" He's like, "Hold on." And he's like, "Oh, it's awful out here today." And like makes his way over to the sky cart and like climbs in with the two of you, and has him. He's like, "Just bring them around there," and actually brings you around to a separate landing pad. And when you guys lands there and go walking in, it is nothing like before, where there's a bunch of people going in and a whole bunch of like. It's like you walk in, and as soon as you go walking in, the person looks up and says, "Hello, may I see your identification papers?" And you know, he walks over with you to have you pull out your paperwork.
Okay.
Okay.
So
You pull out your papers and
Yeah.
put them there, and she opens them up and checks them out, and she's like, "Oh yes, I know what this is in regards to. Let me just," and makes a couple of notations instead of a book, and says, closes your paperwork, hands them back to you, and says, "Please follow me." And he waves you off and goes walking out a different door, and you can imagine taking like a long way back to where it was that it was before, where she leads you into that second entrance that you had gone in beforehand. It's that big long room. I remember I said it came from another entranceway. This is it. And you actually go into that room, and you can see that he's standing there. And so he's standing there and looking down the, like literally has like his face inside of the horn that I described to you beforehand. That was like 3 feet long, weighed like 14 pounds, with his face inside of the horn. Around the room, you see that there are 6 other individuals. I say individuals because whether or not they're people is up to you. 4 of them are warforged. One of them is an elf, and one of them is a gnome. And so the Warforged are like kind of moving about things. 3 of them are like moving things and kind of keeping them organized, so on and so forth, cleaning stuff. One of them is actually standing directly behind him, and as soon as he says something, makes notations of it. One of the other gnomes is actually currently has a different piece of your the artifacts that you dropped off, and he has like a little kit opened up in front of him where he's taking like little scratch samples off of things, and using those inside various like petri dishes with different chemical admixtures, and you can see like smokes coming up and hear fizzles, and you can see like a whole bunch of other experiments going on that he clearly has like notations of going. And then the elf that's there is actually sitting in the corner, and he's actually doing some reading. But what's next to him is like a small library of books, which you can imagine is like infinitely what was the word I'm looking for? My apologies. Without value. Why can't I think of that phrase? Costless.
Invaluable?
Invaluable. Wow. I could not think of that
You were
phrase.
so close. Yeah.
Priceless.
Value. Priceless.
Valuable.
Priceless and valuable. So priceless. That small library next to him that he's pouring through, that you can imagine is priceless as well. Why couldn't I think of that phrase? That is priceless as well. And so he's reading through that, and you can see like after taking an extra moment to look, because so many of the books look similar, you can see that one of the books that's on his 3 of the books that's on his desk are the ones that were grabbed by Kieran originally, and so you imagine he's cross-referencing. So when you guys come walking in, one of the Warforged walks over and up to the two of you and says, "Welcome."
Thanks.
Thank you.
Where is God? I'm never gonna remember his name. Norfus.
Nesfam. And he's got his head in the horn.
Nesfam Calthurin.
So I see him when they come in. That I wanted to ask. I would say, we're here to speak to Nesfam. Thank you.
He goes, he's a little busy at the moment. You are?
I'm the one who brought all this stuff.
He looks over at one of the other Warforged, the one that's holding the book, kind of flips back a couple of seconds inside the book that he's holding, looks at him, nods, and he goes, "Okay." And and you guys go walking past him. Could you do me a favor, both of you guys? Roll me a perception check, but I'm actually going to give Corvus an advantage on this, because Eric's a young boy.
I'm just a young boy.
Corvus also has that sweet crotch height eye level.
Ugh.
Interesting.
New perception, gives you new perspective.
Yeah, so your perception check, Corvus, you actually noticed that even though he was standing there seemingly harmless, you actually noticed, not when it was happening before, but now that he said that and turned to go walk away, that his forearm actually seals back up. And you can imagine what was in there is some Warforged have these amazing components that exist on them, and sometimes it's weapons that literally exist in their body, whether they be always out in the open or stowed away for times that they're needed. And
Dude,
so you
got
all of a sudden
fucking
see
Mega
that
Man me?
snap back
He
shut.
was about to Mega Man you.
Yeah.
You can imagine that the
bullshit.
type of that he probably had a weapon there. And I'll even go one step further and allow you to make me an intelligence check to see if you know what, or even a history check, see if you know what kind of weapon it was. You
Probably
don't,
not.
sadly. You
Yeah,
don't.
no.
So, so you guys go walking across the room, and Corvus has his face inside the
No, I don't.
horn. Sorry, Nesfam has his face inside the horn.
Corvus, what are you doing?
Look, I get very distracted very easily.
I'm sorry,
All
I'm
little
very
people are the
horny.
same.
This is mean, really.
Racist,
Small
unnecessary,
size people.
aggressive, illegal. So I would walk up to him and I say, how are things progressing?
You hear this echoing. Oh!
I tap him on the shoulder.
Pulls it away. Is almost like a little as he pulls it off his head. He's clearly had it in there for a while. It's now that you notice that he has it's likely something akin to a weaker version of a dancing lights or something like that. That was inside there that comes flying back out and rests settled over his shoulder. It's like a dim light that he could have used to look in there while his face was shoved in it. And he's like, hello. Yes, Ryyk. You're Ryyk, and you're Stalwart.
Corvus.
You're looking to Corvus.
Very, very nice to meet you. I'm new, and you are.
I am a little disheveled at the moment. Yeah, it's clean enough. And he shakes your hands. Nesfam Kalkorin. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Excellent. Now that the pleasantries are over, do you have any status update?
I guess we can get to being unpleasant. I do, of course. There's been a lot of research that I've done amongst these things. And it's quite the, would you like to take a seat?
Sure. I would take a seat at his behest.
He gestures over to some stools that exist here. They kind of pull one out from under the table and take a seat. And he goes over. His stool has 2 steps up and sits, and you can grab one similar to that there, Corvus. So you can sit high as well. Excuse me. Hello, yawn. My apologies. He says, let's get started because this is so fascinating. I'm sure you want to know some, and there's some I'm probably going to have to learn from you. Oh, I got quite the itchy nose. There we are. So the horn. just because the one I just had my face in. What do you know of this horn? Do you?
Very little. What was the do? What do I know of the horn?
You knew that it was made of a red dragon.
Yeah. So I knew. I know it was of a red dragon.
Not just any red dragon, though. A mighty red dragon. A red dragon who's known for great endeavors in the past. And you hear the elf kind of speak over it lazily. Galdor. And he's like, Galdor! That's it. Galdor is his name. Clearly he was stalling because you couldn't remember the name.
Yeah.
He's like, Galdor. Galdor the Mighty. Well, actually, Galdor the Mighty Dirge was the name. Galdor is in different records here and there. We've seen examples of Galdor. Anyways, Galdor was a red dragon that actually stood with the crown at the fall of the Khani Empire as they fell against the impossible evils that they fought at the time. It seemed as though some dragons recorded definitively won, but it's believed even a little over a half dozen dragons were stand with the efforts of the goblins or the goblin kin to allow them to succeed in their efforts. And Galdor, as far as I understand, not only did he aid them in their cause, he sacrificed one of his horns intentionally so that this item can be crafted, an item that can be used to call allies to the aid. It is incredible, but it has to be understood that this horn doesn't just call to the aid of anybody. It needs to be somebody who truly has in their heart of hearts the well-being and the success of the Dakani clan in the heart of hearts to make this work. It can't just be somebody saying, "Hey, I'm trying to win this bar fight here." You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Because if somebody were to blow the horn, without having that understanding, or I should say without proper cause, it's said that the horn carries with it the wrath of of a red dragon and could, blow back, to say the least.
You just had your face inside of there.
I know! Oh, you should smell it.
Does it smell of ash by any chance at all?
He holds it up for you.
I'm gonna put my face in it. So,
actually, it's one of those things where have you ever? So, if you've ever been to a log cabin where there's not just one particular type of wood, but intentionally a few different types of wood, blends of wood have burned, and it gives this somewhat sweet but very earthy, clean kind of smell to it. Now it's not like it smells of wood, because that would make no sense inside of a horn. But it's that same general idea where there's all these different smells of a burning or burnt ashiness to it that give it this clean, almost sweet smell that's enticing. It's intoxicating. It's like when you drive to a friend or a family member's house and you open up your car door and you just catch a whiff of it and you're like, oh my god, it smells like Christmas. You know what I mean? It just kind of catches you. It's one of those feelings you get immediately when you put your face into it. It kind of sends you reeling back to times that you remember beforehand when you were laughing around a campfire just before a particularly nasty battle, when spirits were high and you could smell the forge nearby, and it's it brings you to all these different memories that you have as you smell the horn.
and I quickly take my face out because those memories are hurtful to me right now. But I put my face back on very quickly. It's a strong smell. It's powerful.
It is quite odious. I have to agree, and it's very nice. So, anyways, it's the horn of Galdor, the mighty dirge, he says as he hands out the horn to you. There are much text that has been written about Galdor, but I'll be honest with you, a little bit. It's kind of I've been doing so much research in the individual areas. You're gonna have to speak to somebody. I'm here when you're ready, says the elf from across the way as he turns a page.
Looks like That's who I'm talking to next. Well, let's. Is this the only item you were able to find any information on?
No. Oh, of course not. Absolutely not. That was just the one that had my head in, so I figured we'd talk about that one first. I imagine you're curious about the armor.
Very much so.
So, this armor is something that's rather unique. I haven't been able to verify my hypothesis on this armor. And there are experiments that certainly exist that could prove my hypothesis, but I figured you'd be a little upset with me if I moved ahead with those methods. You see, I believe this was the armor that was forged at the will of the first emperor ever of the Dakani Empire. I believe it's the... I believe this armor... It's said, the legend, that the first armor to ever be commissioned by the greatest forges of all the times can only be destroyed by one who has the rights to destroy it. So to kind of boil it down, this armor is very powerful, has a lot of magics to it. Magics that I haven't even been able to fully glean yet because of the protections on it to make it seem not as such, right? Because it literally protects the wearer who puts it on from magics that detect things. So it protects the armor from that as well. Understand? But more than that, because it was commissioned at the word of the first emperor, it can only be destroyed at the word of someone who belongs on the throne. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
So if I were to tell one of my associates here, and he gestures towards the biggest, bulkiest, and heaviest warforged of them all, to destroy this armor, pound and try as he might, he should not even be able to put a dent into it. A scratch, a scuff. But without the destruction, without the word of someone who... It's said that... Anyways. It's powerful armor, to say the least. Would you like to try now? And he says, like, excitedly looking between you and the big bulky warforged.
I sit there staring at the armor for probably about a minute of silence, just mulling it over.
His excitement kind of steps back a little.
Do it.
He pops off the seat so quickly he actually accidentally lets out like some gas. Like he jumps off so fast. He is so excited. It's one of those, like, he doesn't even seem to notice it. He's like, okay, I've got the perfect thing, hold on. And he goes, like, rushing across the room, and he opens up, like, a box that he had brought in beforehand, and he pulls out this hammer, this, like, massive hammer that has a head on it that was clearly crafted by... It doesn't look adamantine, to be clear. It doesn't look adamantine, which probably is a little happy for you. But this big, huge, massive hammer. And he struggles to even lift it out of the box, but that warforged comes across and goes over and lifts up the hammer. And he and starts to walk over and walks over above the armor. And he's like, do it! Destroy the armor! And the warforged raises the hammer over his head, and he starts to bring it down. And in the last possible second, he's like, wait! And the warforged just barely skims to the side and smashes the table. And he hits it with such heavy might and such a powerful hammer. He literally cracks the table, sends cracks all along the huge table. A chunk of it falls off the bottom of it. And like the whole thing vibrates. The piles of coin that were neatly set up completely spill everywhere. It literally sends other people like in their chairs, like bouncing and whatnot. And the warforged looks up at him like what the fuck? As I imagine your characters do as well. And he goes, yeah. Wait! You gave me permission to give permission for us to break the armor. What if that works?
Don't damage the armor. I say, do not damage the armor.
He goes, oh my God. I was so scared for a second there. Okay. So we're not allowed to hurt the armor, right?
No.
What happens if I hurt the armor?
I sit there and think for a moment, not having come up with a consequence. I will.
Pay for the armor. You pay for the priceless armor that you broke.
I'm not less worried about that. I'm more just I want it to be like an edict. Then you will. I try obviously like stumbling for something. I say then you will face the punishment of pain. And I look at him kind of like, is that good enough?
He shrugs and says, "Break it anyways." And the Warforged is like, "Okay," and like lifts up the hammer and like he's holding over his head again, and then he like looks at the gnome like, "Really?" He's like, "Did I tell you to do something?" And he's like, there's like a big Warforged like shrug, which is like the whole body kind of like raises up a little bit and drops back down. And he brings the hammer down as mighty as he possibly can. And as it smashes into the armor, it's just as heavy of a smash before. The number of cracks that go across the table are so incredible that it actually causes the table to collapse in on itself, right about the middle area. Collapses on itself, everything spilling down the table, all these priceless artifacts, or who knows how much scuffing and whatnot happens to him as it does so. It actually causes the priceless books that the wizard was studying to topple off the desk that he's there. It sends you and Corvus skittering off of your stools and having to like catch your balance down below, and everything just kind of spills on top of it. And the Warforged raises his hammer back up, and there's just a big mess in front of you with dust in the air and whatnot. Because he was standing like right next to it, because he was excitedly standing next to the Warforged, Nesfam is like, "Why are you wasting time? Just pick up the armor." And so he picks up the armor, and like the little glowing thing goes off of his shoulder and lights up over around it, and you can see there's not a scratch on the armor.
I stand up, just like completely entranced. And I say, "Give it to me."
The Warforged does.
I look the armor over. This is, if nothing else, this is an incredibly fine piece of if this is an incredibly fine piece of armor working. I wonder though. I'm going to look for a part of the armor that doesn't seem incredibly structurally important. Yeah, I want to find like where I want to find like a bit on one of the breastplate, and I want to both think and then vocalize. I say, I want to dent this armor. And I'm just gonna try to strike it once with my hand, not incredibly hard, just a small strike.
You strike the armor, nothing happens. The Warforged hands you the hammer.
No, I don't want to deal that much damage. Okay. All right. Well, you've proven your point. I have to think on this. What else?
He nods as he like looks back to the table and everything that's in piles on the ground, and he's like, "We may have broken some of your stuff just now."
Well, the horn, the armor, and the sword were the most important to me.
He nods, glad that is the case, and he says, "Very well. Let's talk about some of the other stuff then." And he points over to the banner, and then what he explains of the banner is honestly stuff that you had already heard from Stalwart beforehand. Yeah. So actually stuff that you already understood beforehand, because it's your family's symbol that's on there, and your family was known to be loyal. Forever loyal, aside from, obviously that experience that you had witnessed or whatever, and right? He goes through the rest of the items that you have there, and more or less they're able to verify that everything was as you say it was. A few items were actually destroyed by the table collapsing in on it, but they're items that were of significance because of they're priceless because of how old they were. Nothing that's okay. And the plans of the various types of weapons that can be created are all authenticated as well. To type, so some of the things have been rediscovered, like there are certain things that exist in the world, even in the real world. Like the discovery of how to do architecture was kind of like lost over the ages and rediscovered again. Like since the Great Pyramids were constructed, nothing else has been constructed as tall, if not taller, until in the 1800s when the Eiffel Tower was made, right? So it's like new technology has kind of caught up to the old technology that they had beforehand. But then some of the designs that they have, as far as this gnome understands, mind you, it's not House Cannith, these don't exist right now. These are still far more advanced metallurgy and forging techniques than exist even today. So those are of course invaluable in a very real sense, as opposed to just sitting inside of a library and sitting inside of a museum. But more than that, everything that he's able to point out. Oh, the sword itself. So he actually talks about the sword itself. He's like, this sword is kind of a strange one. Of course, of all the great tribes that exist even today in Dargun. And one of them, the common phrase of the clan is known as the Sword Bearers. And they have their name because it's an ancient clan.
I'm familiar.
It's an ancient clan that has in their possession and touts it quite loudly, I might admit, quite loudly touts that they have an artifact, ancient and to the Takani Empire, that pertains to the sword of the Emperor, right? I've never seen this artifact myself to verify it, but it's something they talk about. Anyways, from what I can understand, the techniques that were used to craft the sword right here, crafted of adamantine itself, which I'm sure you've understood, this sword is flawless. The folding techniques, the sharpening, everything about it, it's flawless. I believe that if you took this sword to an iron golem, you could cleave through it without even putting so much as a nick in the blade. And I bring this out to say, like, I wouldn't say that necessarily it challenges the idea that's of what the sword bearers claim to have, but it just makes me curious as to what it is that the sword bearers have, or at least claim to have, if this here isn't it. I mean, again, it's just an adamantine blade, yes? I mean, as far as one can say, just an adamantine blade. But it's flawless. Do you understand?
I nod. Obviously, like deep in thought, like I'm hearing him, but more like I'm processing something in my head, and I say, I intend to take with me the horn, the breastplate, the sword, and the plans. Gesturing to the various like crafting plans. Everything else I'll be willing to discuss parting with for a price.
Price of knowing that knowledge is going to be shared.
Price of gold.
So,
I have endeavors to fund. I have no intention of fleecing you for your entire coffers, but I think we can come to a fair price. I would also still very much like to speak to that colleague of yours.
You hear the book slowly close shut. It's more the cracking of the binding than it is the snapping of the book itself, as the elf then puts the tome he was holding down and sits up a little bit and says, was it me that you were hoping to speak with?
Yes, you. I'm not sure if you're the same person we discussed earlier. Looking back to the gnome, the colleague we spoke of, you mentioned had understanding of psychic impressions.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm not her. She's a little.
I still wish to speak to you, though.
Nice.
I turn back to the gnome.
So the gnome says, oh, of course, you're welcome to, I can set that arrangement for you. They're often very busy. They kind of act as an emissary to certain peoples. I'm not going to bog you down with all the nuanced inner workings and everything of the various peoples across Corvair, but usually she's very tied down.
She?
Yes.
Who is it?
Well, I believe last time we spoke, I had said that she was a he, correct?
I believe so.
It's a little confusing, but that happens sometimes.
I think I understand.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let me speak to your companion over here, and we can nail down some more solid details about when I can speak to this colleague of yours.
Not. So you wanted to speak to the elf now, yes?
Yes.
So the elf stands up, kind of like dusts off a little bit, and turns and walks over towards the two of you, and extends his hand to greet the two of you. And he says, "Good evening. It's a pleasure to meet the two of you. I understand that your names are Ryyk and Corvus, and of course your surnames and standings and whatnot are understood and appreciated. But to cut to the chase, my name is Quickleaf. It's the common tongue for my name, and what's probably easier for you to pronounce."
Thank you, Quickleaf. I appreciate you taking the time to speak to me. Galdor, correct? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Galdor?
He's technically it's in your tongue it's Galdor, but it's he's honestly stalls every time he has to think of a name because he's terrible with them. But would you like to have our meeting now?
Please.
Let's go somewhere that's a little less distracting. Come with me.
I know.
He leads you out the door that you had come in this time, and across a hall past a couple of other doors, then opens another one. When he opens up the door, immediately as soon as you walk inside, it's just incredibly comfortable in there. It's like the perfect lighting for like reading while relaxing. There are a whole bunch of books around you. It's one of those things, the transition of comfort that you have walking from one room to the next. Maybe Ryyk wouldn't quite pick up the nuance of it, but Corvus, who's very familiar and friendly with, because it's the same race as his, the House Lyrandar, probably noticed the nuanced transition that you're no longer on the material plane. Like, it's probably one of those, like, you step in and you're like, this is too drastic of a change for this to have been just magically enhanced. We're probably in, like, a pocket dimension. And so, and he goes into the room with you guys, and when he shuts the door behind you, it's so small of a perceptive, like, difference. Like, the way that sound almost changes slightly, and the way that the door kind of shuts in this silent but still kind of clicking way, that it pretty much confirms for you, Corvus, you're in a pocket dimension. He gestures towards a different array of seats that are all in a comfortable area about. It's set in such a way that you could easily be turned towards each other for comfortable conversation, while clearly choosing the seat that's best for your ass. And he goes over and selects his seat, which is rather comfortable looking, and waits for you guys to take a seat as well.
I would sit down.
A tray makes its way over and places itself in a table that's easy for each of you to reach despite where you're sitting. And some drinks are carried over shortly afterwards and poured in front of you. You can put two and two together as an unseen servant. As that's happening, he says, I'm glad that we've had an opportunity to meet. I'm sure you have questions, and I'm sure you can answer questions of mine about the culture of your people. Now, if I understand correctly, you happen to be Murtalan.
Correct.
Which means that your father is somebody of note.
Correct.
And I believe your sister is the one who is the ambassador here in Sharn.
Correct.
Why aren't you significant?
I am the son. I am my father's son. In the time since I've left my home world, I have embroiled myself. In a most important task that requires discretion. My lack of notoriety is by design.
What design is this? What's your intent?
To be quite honest with you, I know very little of you, and I do not intend on displaying my plans going forward. Not only that, there is not only that my I intend for my God, I'm trying to think of a better way. For my lack of notoriety to no longer be the case, coming very soon. That's why I've come here with these items.
Don't feel too bad. I don't know his plans either.
He nods to you. It's appreciative of the somewhat joke that you're making, and he says to you, "Well, your father sends his regards. I hope you understand that I did send a letter back to your home to confirm who it is that you claim that you are."
Okay.
Well, I don't expect you to explain things to me. I imagine that your father has taught you better than that. Certainly he's taught your sister better than that. So then let's get down to why it is that you're speaking to me. I happen to be an elf in my 7th century. It's rather old here on Eberron, and he's here for the peoples of this land, as opposed to my forebears that exist on the lands to the south and the east of here. I've dedicated my life to understanding the cultures that existed prior, including that of Aranel and the Takani. Along the way, I've learned many of wonderful detail and have met many a fascinating hobgoblin or bugbear or even the lower goblinkin. And I've done a lot of research to come to understand. I was the one that was put 2 and 2 together as we were unfolding what it was that you had brought to us. These artifacts have been lost, mentioned many times throughout history in various pieces of literature that I've discovered. But they've been lost for many, many, many years. As a matter of fact, it's believed that the loss of the Horn of Gardur was the reason why many great battles were lost, because it's said that even the dragon himself would hear the call no matter the distance and would come to the aid of the goblins. Granted, that was 9,000 years ago, somewhere in that realm, so the likelihood of that dragon still being alive is very slim, to say the least, though there's very little of dragons that we know. Either way, the fact that you were able to bring that horn here is distracting. And it's set in the same place where you were able to find a suit of armor like that. Where was it exactly you found this armor? I understand the vault. It was described to some degree, with perhaps a bit too much excitement from Nesvan. But was it adorned? Or was it sitting inside of a vault somewhere?
It was adorned by a corpse, unfortunately.
Your tone tells me that you're not going to let me know anything more than that. And so I won't inquire.
I might.
I'm sorry, you took that armor off of a corpse. I wasn't aware of that.
Correct.
Old?
Indeed. Skeletal.
I have no complaints. Continue.
If I were to infer, thousands of years old. But either way.
Correct.
Oh, no. Fair enough.
If it makes you feel any better, he was family.
He stops and stares at you, his eyes kind of boring into you. Like
I meet his stare.
When there's like the contest of wills going on for a little bit, and Corvus, you can clearly see this. He says, "That makes my next statements rather interesting, because this armor can only be worn by certain people. Obviously, the Emperor, or one that stands very close to the Emperor, perhaps immediately to their right hand or left. Someone that the Emperor would trust with something so grand. Even a prince could wear something like this, or a regent to the throne."
It'd probably be most appropriate on the king, though. An emperor.
Likely. likely the case, though every emperor has their own style. And so while there are traditions, some traditions are pushed aside for a short while and others created over the course of a culture's creation and existence, right?
Indeed.
So, that armor you found, that armor is, in theory, the armor of the first emperor of the Dakani. You found these two items together. The sword is... He thinks it's more significance than I do. I believe that the sword bearers have what they claim they have, and that this is just something finely crafted for a general of great significance. Potentially even the same person that wore that armor if they were standing next to the throne as opposed to sitting atop it. And the flag is something that makes sense that you would find along your family's heritage, because I can see the similarities between the Murtalan clan and what that flag has on it. So that's of no surprise there. You have questions about the significance of these things. Well, the armor isn't without name. It's it's the Resplendent. It's known as the Resplendent Armor of the Dakan. It is significant to say the least. It is said that those who wear the armor catch the ear to whomever they speak. It's said that it brings focus to one's mind when dealing with others. The armor was crafted with such powerful magics to make the Emperor himself difficult to detect, so their enemies, because you have to remember, your people have never been good with magic, and so they needed to protect the Emperor from the various opponents that they had that was good with magic, including the occasional incursions that happened from Aranel, the dragons, and so on, and later on, the beasts that they fought that came from other worlds. The armor is said to protect its, the one who wears it from any blow that could be fatal in a single strike or two. And more than that, it's supposed to protect the who wears it from even incantations themselves, to a degree, dispelling magics as they touch the armor. But lastly, it's to be indestructible in any way, except by one who knows how to properly dismantle an armor of such significance, with and only with the express permission and order of one who's equipped to wear it. Not to say that someone else couldn't put it on. While my bones are not near thick enough to fill the carapace that this would be on me, I certainly could wear it and it would function, but doesn't have the same effect as someone else wearing it.
Okay. You're an incredibly intelligent person. I imagine you put together what I want these items for.
Because of one line that you stated. Yeah.
Good.
You just met this man, he says, talking to Corvus.
Indeed, I have.
Well, he was talking to Corvus, but you respond, it's fine. Do you understand what path this man is on?
I've gathered at least some idea. I may not know his plans, but from what I've seen here today and from what he's said, I've put enough together to understand.
In 700 years, I've seen many wars, some from too close and some from too far. I warn you, as you take your next steps in this world, tread lightly, because if you stray too far from a path that others deem worthy, things could quickly unravel. You'll find yourself lost in the woods, surrounded by nothing but fires and corpses that could shred from one shore to the next.
I know that all too well.
I imagine that should this continent find itself in a war like it was before, it would look to up the ante. There's more at stake than there was. Squabbling siblings was one thing, but others trying to prove their worth, whether or not they should be valued as individuals, or their claims to one throne or another chunk of lands to be significant. There are more here that find something at stake worth fighting for than there was before. And the devastation of the last war has not even begun to mend.
The ante may go up, but the cost is always the same.
Well, let's just all bless our lucky stars that the dragons didn't see it's worth their while to step in last time.
I suppose it depends on perspective.
Maybe one day you and I can have a conversation about what it was that the giants had accomplished in their day. But until that time, I happen to be closer friends with her than Nesfam is. He's a pain in the ass, to say the least. So, if you would like to meet with her, I can have you meet with her as soon as tomorrow evening.
That would be excellent. I appreciate that.
She doesn't like her connections to certain people to be known, so some of us kind of keep it guarded close by.
I understand.
She's a little eccentric.
I have no intentions of making any of her connections known. I would only ask to meet with her.
Understands that when you go meet with her, to approach the situation with an open mind.
I kind of look at the halfling and back to him, and I say, "She's a changeling. Is that correct?"
He shakes his head.
Shakes it no.
Shakes it no.
That would have been the simplest explanation. Okay.
It would have been.
I'm very curious.
I guess I will have to just wait to meet her.
Well, and he stands, standing up. He says, "I've read many books, and I've learned many things about your culture and many others. I would love to have an opportunity again to speak with you about your people. And certainly, when I'm done reading, well, I've read them 3 times through, let's be honest, but cross-referencing the information that I've gathered from the books that you've brought here about the religion that they had, it's unique and very unlike the Dakani to have such a faith as that. So
It was disturbing. It was a perverse man with more intention, with the intention of using the power of the Dakani Empire to build up his own strength instead of the Dakani's strength. It is men like him that brought the fall of the Empire.
did you read the books?
No.
The faith that he was creating, if you have understandings of other cultures, it's narcissistic, it's distracted, it's confused. But if you draw one line next to the line of faith that those of the gatekeepers have, you'll see there's more connections there than you may have otherwise understood. And perhaps if he actually had ascended to the throne, that things could have actually worked out more in the favor of the Dakani. Maybe he actually was meant to sit on that throne. Either way, history fell as it did. He was forgotten until very recently, and the Dakani fell from their battles. So who knows? Things could have turned out worse.
I seem kind of stunned by that information for a moment, that I recover myself relatively quickly.
I'm so sorry. You might not know who the gatekeepers are or what it is.
I do know exactly who they are.
Oh.
I know exactly what they do.
Well then you might understand what I'm...
I know exactly what you speak of.
Then allow me to finish my cross-referencing and see exactly how incorrect I am. I'll be leaving Sharn soon enough to meet with some old friends and see what their opinion is of my notes.
Oh, that's before you. When you are next in town, please send me whatever information you have. I would be glad to look it over.
Something tells me that the next time I'm in town will be far before the next time you are.
I think that is more than likely.
Then I will keep the civic channels open between yourself and mine. Oh, wait, never mind. You travel with an excoriates, do you not?
Indeed, I do.
And she's
I'm
a
sorry.
volatile one, isn't she?
To say the least.
And he looks to Corvus and he's like curiously, like raised eyebrow.
Sorry, this is new to me.
I'll explain more to you after we leave. This is not something I really want to discuss with.
Then perhaps we
Out
won't
her.
use civic channels because even though they're not supposed to, it is believed that they can trace where their messages go to or come from. So I will use Arcanix. I'll be in, well, old on there anyways.
We'll keep channels open, and I'll be glad to keep in contact with you once you find more information. Thank you very much. We should be going.
He goes over to the door. Big sweeps in front of you. Goes over the door, and once again, it's one of those things where as that door handle clicks, as the door whooshes open, you can feel almost that it's like that popping noise, like as an airplane is about to land, or as you're driving too far, like you're driving up a hill, and all of a sudden, like, oh, I do need a. And again, Ryyk probably wouldn't. Ryyk would notice it, but not understand the significance. And Corvus comes to that realization. And you guys step back out into the hallways of where you are.
Let me go collect the items I mentioned before: the armor, the weapons, the plans,
The horn.
and the horn. And after I do that, I turn to Corvus and I say, "Let's go get a drink. There's a lot we have to talk about."
Agreed.
And I imagine that's probably a good place to switch over to Team A.
Yep, but not before we take a break, because
Fuck yeah.
I'm getting
Snacks.
hungry. Yeah,
I gotta
I'm
go
actually getting hungry.
snacks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Next, baby.
All right, everybody. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes, and we'll see what other exposition we can have.
We're gonna do our job real fast.
Or I'm gonna blow shit up.